So let's go ahead and get started. As we look at iCEV, again, what we're going to talk about is iCEV has connections with Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, as well as other learning management systems. We've had the Canvas and the Schoology integration through what's called Learning Tools Interoperability for a while now. However, it wasn't until last March that a lot of folks began using it. We also, once the pandemic hit in March, that's when we created that Google Classroom integration as well. So since we've actually, created these different integrations, and since people have been using them throughout the spring and the fall, we've had a lot of feedback on ways that we can make those integrations better. And so today what we're going to do is just kind of show you how those integrations work, and then also show you some of the different things that are part of our roadmap on how we're making those integrations a little bit better. One thing as we go through all of this material here, and of course my chat box here is in the way. Let me move this down here. But as we look at all of this different material, one of the things is that this website right here, icevonline.com/distance learning, and I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat window. This is a great way for you to get access to all the different information that we're going to cover today. So again, we're going to cover it all. We're recording the sessions and things like that. But if you want some really quick, easy to use guides, you're going to find those right here. So you'll see here, let me get this out of the way as well. You can see here like the iCEV Canvas integration, the iCEV Google Classroom integration, and then that Schoology integration as well. So once we go through each one of those parts, we'll click on that and you'll kind of see exactly where you're going to find that resource. But this icevonline.com/distance learning is really the best place to get started with it. So let's move on to Google Classroom. So as I mentioned earlier, when the pandemic hit, one of the first questions that we got asked starting about spring break last March was how does iCEV work with Google Classroom? And before, all we had as an integration with Google Classroom was kind of the old school way of copying and pasting the link and putting it into Classroom to direct your students to iCEV. But at that point, we started really kind of building up that integration, and we released it actually this August, and we've been making steady improvements to it ever since we released it. What that Google Classroom integration allows you to do is, number one, it allows you to log in with Google. So it makes it easier for your students to log in because basically we're connecting that iCEV account with your Google credentials. And so it makes it pretty easy for students as well as yourself to log in. The second thing it allows is it allows you to share assignments from iCEV to Google Classroom. So, and we'll cover this here in a second, but it's a quick little button that you just click and it just transfers that link over to Google Classroom. Next, what it allows you to do, and this is something that it did not have this summer when we released it, or this fall when we released it, but it's something we've added within the last 4 weeks based on feedback from teachers. It allows you to schedule assignments. So when we started this, when you click that share button, it made it immediately available for all of your students. Now we've got it to where you can actually schedule those different assignments out. We also have the ability to where you can add instructions to Google Classroom directly from iCEV. And then also the grades transfer from iCEV to Google Classroom if that assignment was shared to the classroom. So for instance, if you share an iCEV assessment to Google Classroom, your students click on that link in Google Classroom and take that assessment, that grade will be both in the iCEV gradebook as well as in the Google Classroom gradebook. So let's go ahead and kind of dive in and look at how each one of these features works. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is go to my iCEV login screen, and you can see right here where I've got that sign in with Google button. So I could click that, and what that's going to do is that's going to connect me to that Google account. So, but for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and log in. And after I log in, the one thing that you'll notice is I've got my courses set up here on iCEV. So if I click on, say, this first hour career preparation 1, and then I look at a lesson, let's say this formulas for career success job search, One thing that you'll see is you see that share video / PowerPoint with Classroom. You've got that button right there. If I look under this instructional materials tab, you can see that there's the share button with Classroom for those as well. And then for your interactive materials, there's that button there as well to share with Classroom. So sharing it with Google Classroom is really simple. What you're going to do is you're going to first click on this share video PowerPoint with Classroom. And if it's the very first time you've clicked on this, the first thing that you're going to do is it's going to ask you to connect to that Gmail account or to your Google Classroom account. And then the next thing is it's going to ask you to give permissions for us to access, for iCEV to access that classroom. If you do not accept all of the different permissions, then the integration will not work. So that's a very important part. I've already done that here. So it's already pulling up that Google Classroom piece right here for me. But if this is the very first time you're trying to share an iCEV assignment to Classroom, it's going to ask you a lot of questions that are standard Google Classroom questions regarding the level of access that you give to iCEV. If you have any questions about that and you have any questions about whether or not you should accept those permissions, definitely advise you to kind of speak with an administrator at your district about it. In most cases, when we work with a school district, we do sign privacy agreements and privacy policies and data policies. So a lot of times that's covered through that. But if you have any questions about that and just want to be sure, make sure you talk with administration in your school regarding how that works. Okay, so I clicked on that button and it gives me my pop-up here for how I'm going to share this one particular video to Google Classroom. So you can see right here, one of the things that you'll notice that we give you a little date and time stamp here for to let you know that what time it is Central Time. And that's going to be an important thing that we're going to look at here in a minute on why you need to know Central Time, even if you're not in Central Time. Next up here, we've got the title. So, this is the Formulas for Career Success Job Search video. A lot of times we place the whole title in there. You can edit this to make it shorter for your students. So for this one, I'm just going to say this is my job search video. And that way it just makes it nice and simple for you to share it. Sometimes I'll put like -iCEV, especially if I'm sharing from multiple different resources into my Google Classroom. So next up, now you're going to choose, where you're sending the video from. So like this one right here, I'm sending it from my first hour career prep from iCEV. And I've labeled another one in Google Classroom, first hour career preparation as well. Why is this important? Well, why it's important is whenever we get to the grades, especially, it just makes it a lot simpler for you to share the proper resource to the proper Google Classroom. We'll cover that here in 1 second. Next up, I've got a due date. So I can then specify when I want this assignment to be due. And then I'm going to put in the date and then the time that it is due. And again, the time is in Central Time. So that's why we give you that marker right here to let you know that it's 9:11 a.m. currently in Central Time. So it just kind of helps you figure out, ways to make that work. One of the upgrades we do plan this summer is to basically be able to pick up your time zone. So that way it is based on your time zone and not Central Time. But that was going to be a little bit more difficult to get done during the holidays. So this was just a quick way to get it out to where, you guys could certainly start using it immediately. So I'm going to choose, I want the due date, and I'm going to go ahead and put in the time right here. And then next up is my scheduling. So again, as I said before, whenever we first release this, once you press that share to classroom button, it immediately became available to your students. Now you have the ability to come in and choose what date you actually want this to show up for your students. So if I want this to show up for my students at, let's say, January 8th, 2021 at, let's do 10 o'clock a.m. Central Time, I'm going to put that information in there. And now that assignment is not going to become available to my students until that particular date. That was an area we heard a lot about from teachers this past fall. And so we wanted to make sure we got that schedule button in there to where everybody could start using it. And then next up here, I've got my instructions. So I can say, please watch the following iCEV video on searching for jobs. So next up, I can click share, or if I have, say for instance, 2 different sections of this particular class, what I can do is I can go in and I can go ahead and share this with another class. So for instance, this is where this from your iCEV course really kind of fits. If I was to share it from my first hour iCEV course now into my second hour career prep course, what that's going to do is that's going to put, when it comes to the grading and the rostering in iCEV, that's going to put all of my students over here into that first hour class. So instead, what I want to do is I want to take it from my second hour career prep class on iCEV, and I'm going to put that into my second hour career prep on Google Classroom. So it's just making it really simple for you to send the proper resource to the proper class in Google, and make sure that your rosters stay similar within iCEV. Again, I can put my due date. And so let's scroll down a little bit and let's choose that for this class. Let's say that our due date is going to be January 25th. And then let's say that our scheduled date, I want it to show up on January 11th. And then again, I'm going to just copy these instructions right here and I'm going to paste them in. And after I've got all my information in, then I click the share button. So I'm going to go ahead and click share. And what that's going to do is that's going to then share that assignment to those 2 classes in Google Classroom. And so you'll get a green notification saying that the assignment has been shared to Google Classroom successfully. Go ahead and press the OK button to exit. Now, if I come over here into my Google Classroom, and let's go ahead and look at this first hour career prep, and I'm going to go in here to my classwork, you're going to see where this is one I was doing testing out earlier this morning, but you'll see that I scheduled that for January 6th at 8 a.m. And you'll see the job search video here on iCEV scheduled for January 8th at 10 a.m. So it's a really simple way for you to be able to go in and share those assignments to Google Classroom. If this was an assessment, so if this was an interactive material. So for instance, if I come down here into my interactive materials and I click on this assessment, this is one of those assessments that's automatically graded on iCEV. The students complete the work, they click submit, and then it automatically grades it and records that grade in the iCEV gradebook. But if I wanted to send this to Google Classroom, this is one where the grades will transfer over into that Google Classroom gradebook. So let's say I want my students to have 1 chance to take this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click the Share with Classroom button. And for this time, I'm going to go ahead and say this is going from my first hour career prep into my first hour career prep. The due date is going to be, let's say, January 11th. And then the available date, we're going to make that January 8th. And then I'm going to say complete the following assessment. I click share. What that's going to do is that's going to post that assessment right there into Google Classroom. Now, for those materials underneath interactive that's automatically graded by iCEV, when that student clicks that link in Google Classroom to take that assessment, that grade will then be in both the iCEV gradebook and then also the Google Classroom gradebook. Now, a couple things to remember on that grade. If you don't share it from iCEV into Google Classroom, then the grade is not going to show up in the Google Classroom gradebook. You actually have to share that into Google Classroom in order to get that grade to show up. The other thing to remember is I gave my students on this 1 attempt. So I told them you have 1 chance at this assessment. And so therefore the grade that I'm going to see in Google Class as well as in iCEV it's based off just one attempt. But if I change this to say, okay, my students now have 3 attempts, then the grade that's going to show up in Google Classroom is going to be the very first attempt that student made. Or I'm sorry, let me repeat that. The grade that's going to show up in Google Classroom is going to be the very latest, the most recent attempt that that student has taken. So say they take this assessment and they get an 80 on the first try, a 90 on the second try, and a 100 on the third try. The grade that's going to show up in Google Classroom is going to be that 100. Now you as the teacher will still be able to go into iCEV, and if you look here under report mode and go to all scores, you'll be able to see all of the scores that that student has for that particular assignment. But in Google Classroom, the only thing that you're going to see is going to be the most recent grade. That's going to be the only thing that you'll see is the most recent grade. So we are working on a few more features with Google Classroom. I'm going to pull up a screenshot here. We were hoping this would be ready to roll out before today, but it's going to, looks like it's going to be another couple weeks before we can roll this out. But within iCEV, we are making a Google Classroom settings button to where one of the things that we saw a lot this fall is, with multiple preps, multiple different subjects, everything kind of going on, it's hard to keep track of what's been shared to Classroom and what hasn't. So basically we're making a diary here for you to where you can look and click on it and say, okay, this one, like for this one, this swine management practices assessment 1 was shared to Classroom on November 30th, shared it to 2 different classes. It was accessed by 22 students and then submitted by, 18 of those students. The other thing that you'll be able to do is all of these are clickable. So if I click this 22 students, and it's not going to work for me here because this is just a picture, but if I click on that 22 students, what it's going to do is it's going to show me the exact 22 students that actually accessed it. And then if I click here, it's going to show me the students that submitted it. And I think I've got a screenshot of that here to where you can just kind of see that once you click on it, it'll bring a pop-up box. So again, we're expecting that here in the next couple of weeks to kind of help with management of all things Google. The other thing is we have this share all to a new Google class. And so one of the things that we found is that as you share assignments to Google Classroom, a lot of times, teachers will try to copy those assignments and paste those assignments into another Google Classroom. And based on how permission settings in Google work, it causes quite a bit of a challenge. And so what we did was just kind of built this button to where, if you shared all of these assignments to this one Google Classroom, and then say suddenly another Google class pops up that you want to share all of those same assignments with, you'll be able to click that button and it's going to share all to a new Google class. So these are just a few of the things that as we release that Google Classroom integration this fall that we heard a lot from teachers about on ways we could better serve them and their students. And so we've tried to integrate those along the way. It's still pretty early in our integration with Classroom. So as you have any tips or requests or things that you would like to see us add, please let us know because we're constantly making the revisions to that. I would like to kind of point out on this page, and where I'm getting to this is on this icevonline.com/distance learning. If I click on this iCEV Google Classroom integration, and I'm going to go ahead and open that in a new tab here, but there's a lot of great information on here, including some of the frequently asked questions and troubleshooting. So we worked a lot with schools over the fall. And so you can see like right here, we were talking about copying Google Class, right here, it just kind of shows you that and avoid using the reuse Google Classroom post. So we just try to put some good tips, tricks, and info in there, on ways to kind of maximize that integration. So with that being said, let's go on and look at some of the other learning management systems. So let's go ahead and look at Canvas as well as Schoology. So our integration with Canvas and Schoology, what we do is we follow something called Learning Tools Interoperability. And so iCEV, and what LTI is it is a set of standards that basically makes it to where one system will talk to the other systems. And if, you know, we as a content provider have, you know, standards, as does a learning management system like Schoology, Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, etc., then everything should talk and everything should play nicely. So we are LTI certified. We've done it. We've built our system to where it talks well with those different areas or with those different learning management systems. But I will say, and we're going to go through and show you some of this as we look at that. If you're familiar with the traditional iCEV experience, so things like being able to hide posts from students, being able to set those attempt thresholds and things like that, it's a little bit different as you work within an LMS because we're kind of working within the confines of the learning management system. So a couple of things that we kind of point out as bullets for how we work with the learning management system is, number one, it allows iCEV content to flow through that learning management system. So think of it like taking iCEV and dropping the whole iCEV library into that learning management system box, for example. Grade passback is supported. So what that means is basically if a student completes one of the interactive assignments on iCEV set up through the learning management system, that grade will pass back into that learning management system's gradebook. And another thing, and I added this morning, this is something that we've added this fall, are what's called thin common cartridge packages. And so I'll kind of show you what that means here in a second in regards to, you know, kind of how that works. And I see where somebody has raised their hand. We are going to be doing Q&A sessions here at the end. So if you have a question, go ahead and put your question into that chat box. And here at about 9:40, we're going to start going through and looking at those different questions and answering those questions. All right, so let's go ahead and jump over here to Canvas, and we're going to use Canvas to show how everything works. So to start off with, if I'm in Canvas and I want to integrate iCEV using that LTI, the first thing that I've got to do is I've got to get what's called a key and secret. Now, what the key and secret does is basically it allows your Canvas profile to access iCEV's library. We do this at the teacher level, so we can provide a teacher a key and secret, but I will tell you that it's best to do it at that district level. The reason for that is since this fall, we've made some upgrades to how we integrate with Canvas and Schoology, and we require a few different pieces of information that makes the whole experience of using Canvas a lot better. And so it's best if we work directly with the district admin to get that key and secret. So we provide the key and secret as well as the instructions. And after we provide the key and secret and the instructions, then the admin basically loads it into Canvas. And then that's kind of how you use iCEV with Canvas. If I look at it here, what we do is we install iCEV as what's called an external tool. And so you can see here's my iCEV external tool. And if I just go to edit that, here's that key. The secret, which is hidden, we give a few other directions. And then once we put all of that information into that learning management system, we've now basically connected the learning management system or connected iCEV to the learning management system. And then we can start pulling in all the different lessons that we want. One thing to keep in mind too, this is always something that, you know, we try to point out is if you have a traditional iCEV account, so you log directly into iCEV and this is what you see. Please know that this account and this account that you're going to have for Canvas are going to be two totally separate accounts. And what I mean by that is when you go to access the iCEV courses in Canvas, they are going to be different than the ones that you're going to have on this page. They're going to be our straight out of the box courses for your particular state. So if you went in and customized an iCEV course, when you go into Canvas, you're not going to see that same customized iCEV course. We are working to kind of make these two things work a little bit better together. But for right now, these are two totally separate accounts. Another part of that is if you have a student using that Career Prep 1, course as an example or an assignment, they complete an assessment over here in Canvas, you're not going to see that grade whenever you go into your iCEV gradebook. It's only going to be in the Canvas gradebook. So there are a few things that we like to kind of point out regarding that integration that's a little bit different. It works different than that Google Classroom where you're kind of transferring one to the other, and you're, in iCEV and you're in Google Classroom. With Canvas, you're pretty much in that Canvas interface and you're working everything through Canvas. You're just bringing in our entire library through that. So that being said, I'm sure that was not very clear, but if there's questions about that, please put it in the chat box and hopefully I can clear that up here in a minute. But the way you would use iCEV within Canvas is I've set up a module here for personal financial planning, but let's do something. Let's go ahead and set up another module. And we're going to call this, I believe we just did one over the job search. So let's just say this is our job search iCEV module. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add that module. And now what I need to start doing is I need to start putting in some different resources or assets for my students to do. So for that, what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and click that little plus sign. And we're going to say a new assignment. And we're going to say this is the job search video. So let's go ahead and do that job search video. And now that I've got that, I'm going to actually edit that assignment. And then we're going to link it to that iCEV video. So the nice part about using iCEV with Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology is that these LMSs have some bells and whistles that iCEV doesn't have at the current time. So one of those is the ability to add some different text or instructions there for your students. So for instance, within iCEV, if I was trying to assign something to my students, I have no way of putting some context around it or putting some text to say, watch the first 2 segments of video or, complete the first 10 questions or something like that. Whereas with an LMS, you've got the ability to do that. So I'm going to say, please watch the following video and please keep in mind these topics while watching the video. And then I would add up those different topics. And then from here, this is where we're going to go through and we're going to actually pull in all the different parameters for that iCEV. So since this is a video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, do not count this towards the final grade, and I'm going to leave it at 0 points. Next up, under my submission type, this is where we get to iCEV. I'm going to choose the external tool. I'm going to click find. And I'm going to choose iCEV right there, and I'm going to select that. Typically, I like to load my tool, load it in a new tab. You can choose either way. You can either have it load or not. For this time, since I know a lot of folks don't like to load it in a new tab, I'm not going to select that. But please know that if you click load it in a new tab, all it's going to do is make the screen a little bit bigger and easier for you to see. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. And then next, I'm going to click save. Once I click save, it's now going to take me to where we are going to go through and pick that resource. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to choose that careers. Let's select the lesson from a course. I'm using that career preparation 1. And now I'm going to go down and I'm going to find that job search. Let's see here, formulas for career success job search. And I'm going to go ahead and select that. And what I just did was I just linked that video right here into that for that one particular assignment. So you can see it's all, basically just gone through and just provided the link. And now whenever I go back into that assignment, and let's go ahead and click on that, you're going to see that it's just going to automatically pull up that video. So what you're doing is you're going through and you're just selecting the content that you want from iCEV to show up. If we wanted to do another one, so let's go back. And so now we've got the job search video. Now let's do a new assignment. And we're going to say this is the job search assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and add that item. And we're going to edit this assignment here. And we're going to say, please complete the following iCEV assessment. And then here we're going to put in, because iCEV are based off of 100 points, we're going to go ahead and put in 100 points. And we're going to choose external tool here. I'm going to choose iCEV. And then after that, I'm going to click save. And now again, I'm going to go back through and I'm going to choose my materials. So I can select the lesson from the course. I can go to career preparation 1. And then let's go down here and find the job search. And now let's choose the assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And basically what we just did was we just embedded that assessment. Once we publish this assignment, so let's go back and let's publish this. Let's publish this entire module. And now when we come into our grades, you're going to see that listed there in that grade book. So there's that job search assessment out of 100 right there for you. So just basically as a way for you to link all of these different iCEV assignments and have access to them there within Canvas. And you can see this is really great for a supplemental model. So for instance, if you're pulling out, say, 10 iCEV lessons and maybe, 15 iCEV quizzes or something like that to use, during the course of the semester, it's a really easy way to go through and pick and choose which content that you want. However, if you're using, so if we look over here at iCEV and you're looking at this career preparation course, and you'll see there's a ton of different lessons in here. And if I just pull up, say, one lesson, you've got the video or the PowerPoint, you've got several different instructional resources here. Then you've got lots of these interactive resources as well. If you're wanting to load all of this content into the learning management system, that's where and I brought it up earlier, the thin common cartridge plays a role. So what a thin common cartridge does is it allows us to package up that entire iCEV course. And you can then install that into your learning management system, and it will create a module for every single iCEV lesson. So for instance, if I look here at personal financial planning, it's going to create a module for personal financial planning. And then it's going to load the video. It's also going to load all of the instructional resources. So it's going to load all of these resources as well as the interactive assignments into your LMS. So it's a great way to basically put every iCEV resource for that one course into your learning management system. Now, here are a couple of the downsides of doing it that way, that thin common cartridge way. Number one is you're going to still have to go in and place those instructions, the due dates, those types of things within each one of those assignments. And then the second part of it is it's going to load every single thing from that particular course into your learning management system. That's not so bad because you're basically going through and just choosing what you want, but you're going to be probably removing a lot of assets that maybe you're not necessarily wanting to put into Canvas or Schoology. You're going to be, removing those from the course. So, but again, that's what our thin common cartridge is. Another part of that thin common cartridge is usually a school district administrator for Canvas will have to load that. Occasionally we see it where, teachers have the rights to go in and do that, but a lot of times we see it that kind of held at the district level. So again, all of this that I've covered is going to be right over here in this iCEV and Canvas integration, on that distance learning page. If we look at Schoology, and I know that we're running a little bit short on time, But Schoology works the exact same way. So if you'll see here underneath this course options, and I'm going to go down to my external tool providers, you'll see here I've loaded iCEV as that external tool. I've put in the key and secret and all the different settings that are needed. And so now that it's set up, I can start using all the content from iCEV. Here's how you'll do that. So if I go in and click this add materials, and I'm going to choose this add file link / external tool. If I choose that, and then I choose external tool right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose iCEV. I'm going to give it a title. And so we're going to say this is iCEV video test. I'm going to put in my URL. And then now I'm going to go, if I was doing a graded piece, since this one's a video, but I'm not going to do grading, but if I wanted to enable grading there, I could. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And now after I do that, it's going to take me to the picker tool, just like what we just saw in Canvas. So for this one, I'm going to go choose Family and Consumer Sciences, select the lesson from the course. Here's dollars and cents. And now I can choose which lesson I want to use, as well as which lesson asset. One other thing, and I didn't point this out with Canvas, but you'll see right over here, this lesson plan. You still have access to the lesson plan using iCEV within the learning management system. If you just click on that, it's going to pull up that lesson plan. It's going to give you the goals, descriptions, objectives, all the things that you're used to with that iCEV lesson plan. It's going to be there. So that's just right over here to the right. Sometimes whenever you don't open it into a full whole new window, it can be hard to see some of those, the choices over here to see that lesson plan. But if I chose the saving and investment strategies and I wanted to select this video or select the PowerPoint, there I've just selected that PowerPoint and it's now linked into this dollars and cents section 1 within Schoology. If I come look over here, so again, if I go to this distance learning page and I click on this iCEV and Schoology integration right here, you'll see where we basically list, you know, all of the different steps that we just used right here. All right, with that being said, I feel like I've talked a ton. Amber, do we have some questions pulled up?
We do have a few questions for you, Dusty. One is, if you give a student multiple attempts in Google Classroom, for example, and let's say on their third attempt, they end up getting a lower score than the first one, are you able to adjust that in Google Classroom, or how is it reflected in the Google Classroom gradebook?
So unfortunately, we're pretty limited with what we can send over to Classroom. And so what we actually send over to Classroom is just the most recent. So we wouldn't be able to alter that to say we'll send in the highest. It's going to send in the most recent.
Also, can you go ahead and show them in Google Classroom, like what the assignment would look like for a student? Like if they were to assign an assignment or like a quiz or something, for example, can you show them what that would look like from the student's view?
Good question. And I should have been more prepared with that. Let's see here. Let's see. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen real fast and see if I can remember what my username and password is from a student side. Okay. Okay, Amber, you're going to have to give me a quick minute to do this.
Yep.
Were there any other questions that I can maybe field while I'm doing this?
Sure. So we also have a question about integration with Microsoft Teams. Do we have anything ready for that, or do we integrate with Microsoft Teams?
So the best way that we kind of talk about with Teams is, and it's not ideal, but since we don't really have anything regarding, Teams doesn't really follow that LTI protocol, and it also doesn't follow, kind of what we have with Google Classroom. The best way is kind of copying and pasting those links in. And I believe we did a blog post about this. Amber, do you remember if a blog post on how to use iCEV with Teams?
I do. I can see if I can pull it up and I do remember that. Let me see if I can find it and share it in the chat.
So now we continue to get asked more about Teams, and so that's something that we will be adding, I'm sure, lately or in the future. But for right now, it's kind of just guiding on how it would work with Teams. I'm sorry, I'm trying to set up this account right here. Okay, so I am in Google Classroom now. All right, so let's do this. So I'm going to join my class here. Let's see here. So my first hour career prep class. And people, invite. Here's my code. There we go. Okay, so let's do this. So let's go ahead and join that class there. And I don't think I'm sharing my screen anymore, am I?
Nope.
Okay, let me share it real fast. Okay. Okay, can you guys see my screen now?
Mm-hmm.
Amber, is that a yes?
Yes.
All right,
yes,
perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead in this first hour career prep class, and let's share an assignment and make it visible right now. So let's do career prep, and let's do exploring careers in finance. So if I'm going to share that video, I'm going to share it to that first hour career prep. Let's not put a due date or an available date. Let's just go ahead and post it. Let's go ahead and click share. Okay. And now if I come back over here and look at it from that student perspective. Okay, so here you see where I posted that assignment. So if I get past this, you're going to see if we would have put in instructions or anything like that in there, it would all be right there. But if I click this sign in, we're going to do that. And then it says your Google email is not registered with my iCEV because I don't have that iCEV account. Okay, so if you have an account to my iCEV, please log in below. If you do not yet have an iCEV account, you can register it by clicking here. So if I click there, it's going to put that iCEV registration code. I'm going to have to put in a username. Now the username really doesn't matter because I'm going to log in using my Google credentials. A password, forgot password question. And then I'm going to click submit. And now that I'm in, it's going to pull up that assignment right here for me. So, and I think I have the video hidden here. Let's see here. So that's how you're going to go ahead and set that up. So, and I'm not sure why my video's not popping up here, but I'll take a look and see.
Is your video hidden like in your from the teacher side?
Yes, I believe that's what's happening. Okay. So, but yeah, that's how it looks from the student side. It's basically, it takes them directly to that assignment that you want them to do.
And then a few questions about Canvas have also been rolling in. So for the Canvas LTI, the students do not have to log in to an iCEV account, correct? Like, does it automatically link to their student account from Canvas?
Correct. So the cool thing about Canvas and about the LTI integration, and while there are some, I'm always really quick to point out that there are some downsides on using iCEV with Canvas. But one of the great upsides of it is that your students don't have to create an iCEV account. You don't have to create an iCEV account. Basically, everything is done through Canvas. And so whenever we provide that key and secret to you, that basically connects iCEV to Canvas. What that does, when your student first clicks an iCEV link, it passes that key and secret to us and it says, yes, this student should have access. So that student never has to go to iCEV to set up an account, do anything like that. It's all handled through Canvas. So it makes it one less step in that process for you.
There was another one about grades. So if grades do not convert to Canvas, how can we get those grades from those assignments that we assigned to our students? And like the students can show me the summary that shows what they get correct and incorrect. So I feel they have done the work, but how can I get the actual grade?
Good question. So that's something that's popped up a lot. So from the standpoint of how that grade pass back works is if the student completes that assignment and then we're trying to pass that grade over to Canvas, we try to pass that grade over 5 times within like the first 25 seconds of that student submitting that assignment. And just based on various things, it could be filtering things, it could be, internet issues, could be a lot of different variables. But what happens is sometimes that grade gets tracked. It's almost like it's in purgatory, like it can't get from our system into Canvas. First thing is that if the students will go, and we built this over the fall or late in the fall, if the student goes and clicks on their summary report, what that does is we've built another trigger in there to try to send it back to the grade book whenever they click on that. So that's the first step, is to have them click on that. And then the second part of it is that's where our customer support team comes in. We've got where we can automatically trigger those things. I will say that we've added a lot of steps at the end of the fall that we tested over the holiday break to try to stop some of that from happening, from those grades getting tracked.